I guess to finish the sentence, flamenco is the first word that comes to mind is life.
I always say once you've been bitten by the flamenco bug, you have a lifetime you're drawn to it. I mean, it's very difficult to shed it. You've been infected by the flamenco bug, and it's very difficult to separate yourself from it because it embeds itself deep in your soul. Most of my life was really focused, from as long as I can remember back, dancing in my mother's studio, dancing all around town for fiestas and various functions in the city. and had a really wonderful family life. I have a brother and a sister, older brother and sister, and of course my mother and father, and she had a wonderful studio home on the corner of Edith and Candelaria, and we were raised there with a very, very exciting, spontaneous life. And it really was a lot of fun. We had lots of people studying in my mother's studio, and all of my cousins were involved in flamenco, so we had a really wonderful community, and that was my reality as long as I can remember. Then as I graduated, through my school years, I danced and danced and danced. I graduated from high school and decided that I wanted to try to get a degree in dance. So I went to the University of New Mexico, and of course at that time there was no flamenco there. I was studying ballet and modern dance, and as a student, when they found out that I had a long time experience in flamenco, they asked if I would teach a class. And so I did, and for several semesters I taught one level, and it was received with great enthusiasm, and eventually they asked me to teach another level and another level, and eventually they started to realize how important it was, what a vital influence it was for the dancers at the university, and realized that it really should be an emphasis of study. And so we developed the emphasis, and I've been at the university since 1976, began an international festival in 1987, and then in 1999 we opened the conservatory. I mean, one thing just sort of led to another, and from there it's just really been a fantastic life that has been focused so much on this beautiful art of flamenco, which was gifted to me from my mother and my family, and now I've been able to share it with my children and my grandchildren, and it just plays a hugely important part in all of our lives.
We had a flamenco dance studio when I was a child that I participated in classes since I was 5 years old probably. So I took dance classes as I went through elementary and middle school. In high school I pulled back in dancing and played sports a little bit in high school, baseball and golf and basketball. But my mom always kept me involved in dance productions. It's in some way or another. And so once a year, twice a year we would do, when I was 15 or 16, I would still do dance productions. So I was always involved in some way in the art form and in the theater experience, I would say, more than not just dancing, but just the whole idea of production and theater really was something that my mom was really insightful about, keeping myself and my sister around all the time. And that was a real source of education for us.
I grew up in a family, or I've grown up in a family of artists. I've been around dance my entire life. My mom was primarily a flamenco dancer, but danced all kinds of dance. She danced modern, ballet. My grandmother was a singer and a dancer. And my uncle was a guitarist. And I've been surrounded by the arts as long as I can remember. I remember dancing and imitating my mom when I was really little. And I remember having some red shoes and just loving to dance and always doing it.
In learning flamenco, of course, my brother and sister and I, flamenco wasn't a choice for us. I mean, everyone in our family did it. It wasn't, you weren't asked if you wanted to do it, you did it. With my children, also, they were expected to dance. And when they were little, didn't necessarily want to dance. They were forced to dance. And they studied with my mother, actually more than they studied with me. They studied with my mother in her classes 2 or 3 days a week. It was a lot of work, so sometimes children don't want to do that, but they weren't really given the choice. So when they got older, when they got into high school, they continued to dance, but they were, not terribly committed to it. It wasn't until my mother passed away that I think that they realized the responsibility that they had. They decided that they really needed to continue the tradition. At that point, they really came into it with some very, very serious intention.
During this whole time, the Ritmo Flamenco, my mother's performance company, we changed the name of Ritmo Flamenco first to Instituto Flamenco, and then we changed it to the National Institute of Flamenco, and it became the 501c3 that kind of umbrellaed the conservatory and all this stuff. 2 years after the conservatory was established, about Joaquin and Omaira started what they call Yjastros.
We all are here because we understand that the Insigniases have something that a lot of people don't. They have a really deep understanding of their art form, and they are willing to share that with us.
Me huele tú a mí, ya clavito y canela, me huele tú a mí. Clavito y canela, no sabe distinguir a clavito y canela, me huele esto a mí.
I always say to my students, flamenco is not pretty. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it is, but it isn't really pretty, but it's beautiful. It's profound and it's deep and it reaches you on a core level.
To me, flamenco is something that really appeals and is relevant to everyone.
Flamenco is, I think it's passion, I think it's love, I think it's feeling, I think it's so much. It's so hard just to put it into a couple words.
It's rhythmic, it's hard, it's complicated, it's just something that requires all of you.
Flamenco, considering its roots, considering where it came from, considering the people who do it, it's very raw. It's very raw and real and kind of just spilled out. You know what I mean? Just right there.
Well, I guess the first thing that I would say if someone asked me what is flamenco, I'd start by saying it's not an American art form. It's very much, and it's not even a Spanish art form. It's a gypsy art form. And the gypsies were, people who were first and foremost nomadic, traveling, picking up influences everywhere they went, and ultimately settled in southern Spain, which already was kind of a melting pot of cultures with Jewish influences and Arabic influences and the existing Spanish influence in the country. So already traveling all that distance and then settling in such a place that was so influenced really shaped what the art form is. And today we can definitely see that in all the various styles that exist within the art form itself. I just feel that we have such a unique perspective in that we're culturally tied to Spain and culturally tied to the gypsy tradition, but we've really been able to raise up what we have here on our own terms, observing what happens across the Atlantic, I guess, but also really formulating what we feel is ours and our own means of expression through flamenco. So it's very much our own creation, I think, but very tied to what goes on in Spain and what's true, I guess.
I come into an art form that's not mine, and I always joke, well, if the Spaniards were to come here and play American football, we'd probably laugh at them. So when they come here and look at us, they're looking at somebody else, an outsider, doing their art form and something that's very personal to them. And so I always think, well, how can I show them respect and in that? And to me, it's by doing it as me, because that's all I can do. And this is who I am, and this is what I've learned, and this is what I have to show for it, basically. And basically, thank you for sharing your art form with me, because this is what I have to give to it.
Joaquin approaches it as, we are not Spanish, we're not gypsies, we're not from Spain, so we don't inherently have flamenco in our blood. So we can't it doesn't just come to us. Certain things don't just come to us. So we can't learn flamenco how people in Spain would learn flamenco, because they have something right from the very start that we'll never have. So we have to learn that.
I can't be a copy of a gitana from Sevilla because I'm not a gitana from Sevilla. So if I were doing that, I think I'd stop doing flamenco pretty quickly because it wouldn't be true to who I am.
We're not saying we're puro flamencos, but we're definitely want to be true to the art form, and we're saying that we value and we know what's going on in Spain or in other parts of the country or worldwide or wherever it is that flamenco is being done.
We do stay really connected to the tradition of the art form and what the art form really is, and we're really blessed to have teachers and people who help guide us and train us in a way that helps us maintain the integrity of the art form, right? Because the art form has been around for many, many, many years. And we're not here to reinvent it. We're here to learn what's been done and then make it our own in whatever way that is. Here, we're blessed, like I said, to have the teachers and the programs in place to allow us to do that. So, and to allow us to really, really train and understand and study the art form with a lot of integrity.
I believe that New Mexicans can relate to flamenco in a very basic kind of way. They don't see it as strictly a form of entertainment. And flamenco was never created as a form of entertainment. Flamenco was created as a social expression, and I really believe that New Mexicans see it that way. We have traditions here that go back hundreds of years. When these artists come from Spain, we always try to make it a point to take them up north, to visit some of the small pueblos up there. And they're always so impressed with the fact that there are some of the viejitos that are living up there that are still speaking, they're using vocabulary, Spanish vocabulary, that they don't even use in Spain anymore, from Old Spanish. And they realize that the Spanish influence, the root of Spain, has been protected more so here in New Mexico than any other place in the United States. That is very, very important, and I think speaks to the reason that flamenco has such a strong presence here in New Mexico. And when you watch Joaquin dance, you watch Marisol dance, when they're seen by artists from Spain, they know, these dancers know flamenco. These are flamenco dancers, but they have a very, very unique way of expressing it.
En la puerta corriendo tu nacitao, y en la puerta corriendo tu nacitao, para ir a la lumbrera por bacalao, para ir a la lumbrera por bacalao. Te empeñas en ir a ver la murga y te empeñas en ir a ver la murga de regadera. Me asoma a la ventana mi alma del regalito. El regalito me asoma a la ventana del regalito. Me asoma a la ventana del regalito. El regalito y un chaval moreno con carpalino. Y un chaval moreno con carpalino. Catanuela pregona que Santoño, Catanuela pregona que Santoño a España entera. Y en la pila del banco mi alma te conoció. Te conocí en la pila del banco, te conocí. En la fila del banco te conocí, y conté los lunares de tu vestido, y conté los lunares mi alma de tu vestido. Catanuela pregona que San Antonio, Catanuela pregona que San Antonio a España era. La Malena y la Chorda, mi alma como bailaba. Como bailaba la Malena y la Chorda, como bailaban. La Malena y la Chorda, como bailaban. Como bailaban y un rapel Ortega, viva la gracia. Y un rapel Ortega, viva la gracia. Ay, Alameda, ya yo no voy a verte, ay, Alameda, ya yo no voy a verte porque está muerta.
The conservatory and the people there and the programs there and the things that happen affect people. They affect people in a positive way in our community and in Albuquerque and in New Mexico, at the university, and above and beyond that for all the people who have come and taken classes here and taken part in a program here and then left and gone somewhere else.
The National Institute of Flamenco is an umbrella organization, and it produces and supports many flamenco projects. Its first mission was to help to develop this Festival Flamenco Internacional, but as wonderful as the university program was and this festival, we also knew that there was a need in the community, the general Albuquerque populace, to have flamenco classes available to them. And so at that time, my children were now becoming young professionals in their own right. And they were excited about starting a school in downtown Albuquerque. So they came to me and brought the idea forward. And, you know, I knew it would be a lot of work. There would be a lot of challenges involved. But I also knew that it would answer the needs, further needs of the community. So we agreed to do it. And in 1999, we opened the conservatory.
That place in downtown Albuquerque was what I consider for myself, not necessarily for the country at large, but for myself and for my family, sort of a laboratory of creating a very specific way of studying flamenco and almost a methodology and a way of doing something to get to a goal.
The conservatory, it's fun, it's exciting. I mean, if you just walk in, like the atmosphere, everyone, you're greeted there. You're like, if someone sees that you're a new face, they'll go up to you and say, oh, do you need help doing this? Are you supposed to be in the middle studio? Or what class do you want to take? Do you want some information on this? And we always invite people to come in because we want to share this love and this passion for flamenco with everyone that we know.
What you hear and what you see, I think that draws people in is a passionate energy from the teachers, really trying to bring their students along with them on a journey and get them to feel something, get them to feel something similar to what you're feeling, or get them to make you feel something, and that kind of energy is something very different than a lot of dance studios, perhaps.
I think the conservatory is something that's so important, and I can say that because flamenco for me changed my life, you know, but I also believe that, and I'm a teacher at a school, and so I also believe that for our youth and for young people, they need to have something, an outlet, some kind of emotional outlet that's healthy and good for them. And whether it's flamenco or it's not flamenco, the point is that there's a place here where a bunch of people get together, they create a community of people, they hold each other accountable for certain things, right? There's a certain caliber that's set so that you're striving for a certain amount of excellence. So, you know, and if everyone around you strives for that, then that inspires those who are maybe more tired or who don't do that to kind of push towards that goal. And I also think that the NIF and the conservatory, which are basically the same thing, also give opportunities to people who maybe don't have the financial means to participate in other things that may be happening.
Well, one thing that I think is really important about the National Institute of Flamenco is that they will never turn away a student, ever. Like, nobody will be told, no, you cannot take classes. If you can't afford it, they'll give you work study. If you're a child, they'll give you a scholarship. I grew up dancing in a studio. I watched my mom write a check every month for me to be able to take classes and to pay for my costumes every year and all of that. And that stuff is great, but there's a lot of kids that don't have access to this. And so maybe the next Baryshnikov would never be discovered because he couldn't afford dance classes. I just think that's so silly. I think that the contribution to the community by way of just opening their doors to any child who wants to take dance classes is amazing.
The conservatory offers, I don't know how many thousands of dollars in scholarships to young kids. And what that means is, basically what that means is Eva and Joaquin and Marisol decide that it's so important to share flamenco with little kids and people in the community that they're willing to do that for free, is basically what it comes down to. Because a lot of times they don't get the grants or they don't get whatever to supplement that. And so it's just them saying, this is so important that we're going to do it.
And what people don't understand, and this is what irks me, is that when NIF brings artists from Spain, or they produce a festival, or they produce an Yjastros show, the artist fees are crazy. I mean, they might as well bring, you know, Janet Jackson here or Britney Spears, because it's like the same. You know, to bring who she wants to bring to educate the community, to bring the best of Spain here, one show is going to cost her more than 50 grand for one artist and their musicians. And so people think, oh, her festival's crowded, she must make so much money. What is she asking for money for? I mean, they don't get it. They don't get that that these people have paid out of pocket and have begged and pleaded with tears and sweat for people to give small amounts when there are people out there that can give so much more. They don't understand that Joaquin doesn't get paid when he walks out to dance. Eva doesn't get paid to teach dance at the conservatory. I mean, they don't get it.
They have those opportunities because of the work that we put into it. And that's always going to be the way that it is. And you just have to be able to embrace that and start to love that, because you're the ones that are being able to trudge forward and to build this thing, and it's really being built on the backs of like all of these people that are in Yjastros, some of these girls that have been here forever. This whole process, all of this stuff has been built, the curriculum, all of this stuff has been built on everybody working together, not just my mom and Joaquin and I. And yeah, we're the ones that keep pushing forward and like stay like bulls and keep doing this, you know what I mean? But it's really been the work of everybody.
Si los huesos me cruyeran como crujen los piñones, como crujen los piñones, como crujen los piñones, no me dolería tanto como tu mala acciones, no me dolería tanto como su mala acciones. Olvidadito que más quería, que solo vivo en este mundo, en la cabola, alegría, que solo vivo en este mundo, se me acabó la baba. Ale
is Yjastros? Oh God, Yjastros is a monster. Yjastros is this absolutely crazy, wonderful thing.
So we were starting to get some very talented dancers from all over the country that wanted to come here to further their study. So Joaquin started to realize that there was this pool of talent that really needed to have an outlet to continue and to develop into young professional dancers. And so from there came Yjastros, the American Flamenco Repertory Company.
We were looking at the recent photo shoot online, my boyfriend and I, and the first thing that he said to me was, you guys really, and I'm not in the photo shoot, but he said, you guys really look like a band of gypsies. And to me, that's really what we are, because everybody is so different, but somehow we all manage to work together. And it's a really, really unique experience that that I wish people could have more often.
I mean, it's a family, and I think all the younger ones look to us soloists as, you know, when they need help or they need advice. I mean, they're here at my house on the couch with me, and we're talking about God knows what. And same for me. I mean, they're a fresh look, and they lift us up. I see them getting better, and I'm like, oh man, I'm getting old, but I still got to do what these kids can do. And so they lift us up, and if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be pushed and be as good as we are.
It's like brothers and sisters. They get in on your nerves, and you're just like, oh, like, shut up or just go away. I don't want to be near you right now. And then 2 minutes later, you're like, oh, I love you. Like, yeah, of course I love you. But like, I have to love you no matter what. It's like that.
I think one of the things that's great about my father is that he really tries to instill in the company a sense of family, and he cares really personally for everyone that's in it, and really stresses that the work that you put in, you're gonna get something out of it.
We're all like working our butts off, you know, every day, making sure that we're doing our best to represent this, you know, and represent it the way it's supposed to be, and just, you know, enjoy it for the most part too.
I definitely would say that we're not striving for perfection, but we are striving for excellence, to say that we want to know what our choreographies are, and we want to do them also with integrity, and to say that we're going to take ownership of this art form and then do it to the best of our ability with excellence, but then also at the end of the day not walking away feeling bad about ourselves or having some type of complex because it wasn't perfect, because even those days when you come in and you're not perfect, you still contributed something.
Like with any art form, you give a certain amount of yourself to the, like if you're painting, you give yourself to the painting, and you're like, it becomes a personal thing, and the same thing with this project. We're also personally invested in it, and so we spend so much time with it and so much of our energy and soul into it that it becomes part of us, and it's worth the sacrifice.
Those of us who are really working for the project of Yjastros, you're working towards the same goal, which is to create not just a here and now, a company that does well and performs well, but rather also sets up an infrastructure, I guess, for later generations to come in, and for us to retire and then become the rehearsal directors, or running the company in some other way. Those of us who are really involved in the project are looking at the bigger picture, which is, not just you as the star, as the performer, as the whatever in this moment, but what you're also giving to the community, and the role model that you play, for example, for these young girls or young boys that are watching you in rehearsal and watching you in class and watching you teach and taking class from you, and how you're impacting them.
We see the value of working hard every day. We see the value of being sort of torn down by Joaquin every once in a while. We see the value of just this constant circle of getting better but not being good enough, and getting stronger but not being strong enough, and just one thing after another. We see that value, and we appreciate that, because we want to be the best artists we possibly can be. And that's everyone in that room. To an extent, not to an extent, that just is everyone in that room.
Every day, Yjastros
makes me want to be a better dancer. It makes me want to be a better person. It demands excellence, it demands sincerity, and it demands for me to find true excellence in my art. And I think that's great. I think that it's rare to have that. And I think it's also rare to have that as a dancer. I think it's definitely rare to have that in flamenco in this country. And that's beautiful. And it's been made possible by, you know, as much the director as everyone else who comes in the room, everyone else who sacrifices their time. Joaquin has a lot to teach, and one thing is for sure is that he will make sure that everyone leaves knowing as much as he could give, which is really beautiful, and that's really selfless, and I really admire that. And I think that's Yjastros. I think it's a way for people to educate the public about flamenco and demand that from their life, and demand that if this is what we've decided to do, then let's do it, and let's do it well, let's do it right, let's do it with integrity, let's do it with sincerity, and let's have a good time, you know, and let's help each other.
Come on ahí. Ah, Mari. Vamos ahí. Vamos ahí. Y a mí me da la ilusión. Y a mí me da la ilusión. Luego de rabia me como los puntos de camino. Luego de rabia me como los puntos de camino. ¡Vamos allá! Quiéreme, que no salga de tu boca de que nunca me has querido. Tarantán, 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 como como la calle me tiene loco perdido. Quiéreme, 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 que no salga de tu boca de que nunca me has querido. Quiéreme, 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 que no salga de tu boca de que nunca me has querido. Tarantán, 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 como la calle me tiene loco perdido. Quiéreme, 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 no salga de tu boca de que nunca me ha querido.
The reason Yjastros is unique isn't because it's become my sort of artistic voice. it hasn't become that yet, though I'm very proud of what Yjastros is and what it's showing. I'm as proud of what Yjastros means as a process in the community as I am for its entertainment production value.
This being an Albuquerque company, you know, there's so much that they do that reaches out to the community.
We bring in this little piece of Spain, but it also has little pieces of New Mexico in it and little pieces of everything. And I just think it's really important for everyone to learn about as many places and as many different things that they can, especially in the art world.
I think maybe because the language of flamenco is Spanish, because there's a lot of Hispanic people in New Mexico, it's something that just kind of naturally flows, and it's really inviting.
Flamenco is one of the purest art forms in the Latin American kind of canon, I guess. It's the quintessential. It's directly from Spain. It's you know, it's a very Hispanic thing, I guess. And so sharing that with people here in Albuquerque is, I think, extremely important, just to continue to foster a knowledge of Spain and a sense of identity to places that we're ultimately tied to.
Well, it's really important, I think, if you're studying such a culturally rooted art form, that you're respectful of the culture that it comes from. So for us, it's important to learn as much as we can about that culture so that we're not making a mockery of, you know, Gypsy or Spanish or, you know, flamenco culture. If you look at the way flamenco families teach the information to their children, they just learn it from their parents. They don't necessarily go to like a formal class once a week or whatever. It's just in front of you, it's just what you do. And so to create that community is kind of our way of imitating that as best we can within our like American like work culture. You know, it's a different world, I think, but we're kind of infusing that family tradition into it.
It's a complicated art form. It has a lot of different aspects to it and angles to it, and a lot of times you can train in one part of it really hard, but you're missing the other pieces, you know, and because we didn't grow up in it and we're not totally surrounded and immersed by it, there's many different ways that you have to study it and approach it, and you have to know more than one side of it.
The process of training toward Yjastros is very in-depth, long-term experience. For different people, the length of time is different because, for instance, some of them, some of the dancers that are in Yjastros came here from other parts of the United States, other parts of the world actually, to participate in this project, already having had some training behind them. But nevertheless, wherever they come from and at whatever level they enter, they are still expected to go through the curriculum of the conservatory.
I was just hearing his mom talk about it the other day, and Eva was saying, you know, when Joaquin came to her and said, I have this methodology, this is what I'm working on, this is the way I want to teach people, she herself thought he was crazy. She's like, no, that's not the way people learn flamenco. That's not, you know, it's not going to work. And he's like, trust me, Mom, it'll work. And she was the one to state, people who I never thought would dance professionally or dance at all are doing this art form and are learning it and are good at it. And they love it, and it keeps them there, and, you know, they have this tenacity about them and stuff like that. And she said herself has changed the way she's taught because of what Joaquin has invented in his curriculum.
How do these people study 5 or 6 hours a day? Because 3 isn't enough. For a professional dancer, eventually 5 hours, 6 hours is the norm. And that's really what you need. It really is basically 3 perspectives of study. It's a technical perspective, which is just exercises, rote, which is extremely important in dancing as other disciplines. Then there's a practical application element to it. So you have your technique and you have your application, your practical application, and then you have your theoretical, conceptual sort of approach. And you need all 3 of those approaches to become well-versed, I feel. The more you understand certain things, you know, technically, the more in love you become with this idea, the more passionate you are about it, the more all of a sudden it opens up creative things.
There aren't other places probably in the world that can present flamenco in such a way so that we can really excel at it and succeed and find our own voice and find a community of people that really appreciates it and that can really pull from it and take from it.
Nothing is worth doing if you don't do it full out and give it everything and pay attention to every single detail that you possibly can. And that's a type of work ethic that I think, you know, being a teacher now, that a lot of people don't have. A lot of, especially the youth and the younger people in the community are seriously lacking sometimes. And I think that's the one thing that the curriculum and the classes at the conservatory offer some of these kids. And it's definitely changed my life in so many ways. What happens is that, you know, the way that we work there starts to bleed into everything else that you do. Starts to bleed into your job, starts to bleed into your relationship, starts to bleed into your family life, and everything just becomes so much more richer because of that, because you're learning to, I don't know, just pay attention to detail and everything. And I think that's one of the things that makes it different than anywhere else. Anywhere else there's flamenco being done.
La gitana cantará Kelly, la gitana cantará Kelly, la gitana cantará Kelly. De caramba gitana yo me la llevo mañana, de caramba gitana yo me la llevo mañana. De caramba gitana, 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 yo me la llevo mañana. Vamos ahí. ¡Papá! ¡Eh! Arte bonito. Valerio cayó. Tengo un hermano en la mina que Valerio cayó. Pasa por Dillo, que hierba del monte traigo.
Yjastros is very much still a young project, despite being almost, I guess, like 7 years in the making. But ultimately, it's an American Repertory Company, which is a model that was created for ballet and for modern. So you see companies like this all over the country for ballet, but we're the only flamenco repertory company that's here in the States, I guess.
Within the Yjastros leveling, there are the apprentices, there's the core, the soloists, and then the featured dancers. And so the apprentices, their job is to start learning the core curriculum. And the core repertory, of which I believe there are somewhere between maybe 8 to 10 choreographies that they learn. Most of them are original choreographies that have been set for Yjastros. Then once they get through that process and work in the core level for many years, when Joaquin feels that they have developed sufficiently in their awareness of the repertory, as well as developed technically to a certain level, then they become soloists in the company and they start to learn the soloist repertory, which is a more elaborate, more sophisticated repertory. And then beyond that, they become soloists in the company. So it is a very articulate, planned out process that Joaquin has involved, that he follows for the Yjastros project.
When you're creating a repertory, you're creating pieces that are, in your estimation as an artistic director, exemplify this art form, not only your vision, but also the vision of a big group of people. Every company can have its focus, but when you're creating a repertory, it's a museum. You're showing what are a lot of possibilities and potentials within the art, in this case of theatrical flamenco and flamenco in a theater setting, through a big company and in choreography. That's a little different than some of the traditional settings of flamenco.
What's beautiful about what they've made is that, you know, in Spain, a lot of times flamenco is just a solo art form in that you have, you know, one headliner and they do their thing. But, you know, Joaquin has started this company where it's about a group of people dancing together. And I think that's what's really unique about here, and that's why people here are drawn to it, is because there's something different that happens on stage when there's 15 people as opposed to just one.
And that's what makes us, I think, so interesting, is when you see us dance together, we all still look different. And then when you see us dance, like at festivals for the expo, one at a time, it's amazing that we can do anything together because everybody is so unique. And that's what makes it always interesting, is we're all bringing our personalities and our own, you know, movement abilities and ideas and thoughts and musicality to create one product. And that can be a huge frustration at times, but it's really neat to have that also.
As a company, our strength is definitely, as a group, we certainly are a very powerful presence. Our productions are a very powerful, very stimulating experience. And people are always very, I have to say, from what I hear from the feedback after the shows, because sometimes we go out and meet these people or whatever, and they're always very impressed with how hard we perform, how much we give.
So what makes us unique in some ways than other companies is that the level of energy that we bring to a stage, condensed in 70 minutes, is to me, is mind-blowing. To have that many people dancing that hard with that kind of energy. Yjastros does that at an incredible level to me. I started this repertory company that eventually, hopefully, will rival some of these big companies. To put flamenco in its rightful place as a theatrical expression. Flamenco does deserve to be put in the theater setting and could rival any art form. in a theater production. Again, some argue that it's not meant to be in that setting. I don't feel that that's really true in my opinion. I do understand the argument, and I actually respect it in a lot of ways, because a lot of my favorite dancing is watching people really close and being involved in that. But I also think that there's an incredible value to production, and the theatrical theater experience is a really valuable one in our community. And that live performance, that grand, big live performance, is really a beautiful thing.
Joaquin has a vision that a lot of times he doesn't share with us all at once. He gives us little bits and kind of takes us along the way, but he doesn't tell us where we're going until we get there, and then we're like, oh, yeah.
I think every year, every time we do a show, Joaquin has a different approach to how we're going to do it. Sometimes we start 3 months ahead working on all the pieces and getting everything together. And sometimes he doesn't tell us anything until a couple weeks before, and then and we work on technique, we work on other things. It's just, I think he's trying to really like specify what will work best to create the best show, and what we need, what kind of training we need to be getting. Do we need to be working on the pieces for the show, or do we need to be doing basic technique classes or whatever? So, but at this point, this time, I don't really know what we're doing yet.
Joaquin doesn't tell us till we get to the theater. And we were joking today, I was joking with his son, Navy, he was like, what are we doing? Because we had to go to Rhodey to help him put together something, these panels or something. And I said, what are we doing, Joaquin? And he doesn't say, he just goes, yeah, we're putting together these panels. I'm like, and for what? Well, you know, it's probably going to be in the show. We're going to do something with these. I don't know, we may have 8 of them. He's looking around mumbling. And Navy and I are looking at each other. And he's like, well, it's kind of going to be like we'll probably draw straws at the day of the show to see who dances what piece, because he doesn't tell us. And he keeps us on our toes that way. And the thing is like he's got 17 plus choreographies to choose from. And the way we train, he can pull any one of them out when he wants and put whatever person he wants. And that's, I mean, that's cool, because there's not a place I've ever worked at that someone can do that.
We continue to do as much as we can our technique classes and our cuadro classes, and then I think on top of that now what will start to happen is you start to see rehearsals in the theater and rehearsals on weekend times, and costume fittings and ideas and you know, photo shoots for the posters of what the, you know, what the concept's going to be and how we're going to make the concept come together, and what different ideas they're going to use, what kind of props or sets are they going to use, if any at all. You know, how are we going to work with those? Are we going to learn, you know, even now, you know, are we cleaning old choreography? Are we working on new choreography? When do the musicians come in? When the musicians come in, the whole dynamic and the whole feeling of everything changes, because then it's a much different feeling. So I think that's kind of the process that we go through, you know, when we get ready. And it's kind of, you know, not only is it a physical process, but it's an emotional process that you go through.
And that's why I think that these rehearsals are so important. Like I was telling my mom, you know, this is fun. This is the fun time. People, you know, because we're not in the studio, we're on stage. But I think this is where it takes more concentration, more dedication, because this is where you need to be your strongest and give it everything. Because if you don't do it now, you're not going to do it on stage.
Throughout the season, and you know, people get stressed out and we start to hate each other and we just kind of get fed up and we're not getting along, or, you know, just drama happens naturally. And I think by the time a show comes around and we're all there in the moment with each other, at the end of the day, we all kind of, without, I think, saying it, maybe, but we sort of know that it's completely worth it.
What do you think when you're up there? Are you thinking about passion? Are you thinking about somebody you love? Or are you thinking about this or that? And sometimes I'm honestly thinking about the bills I have to pay. You are who you are on stage. I don't care if you're a con man in the real life or whatever. When you get on stage, you are who you are, and it all pours out, it all comes out.
Honestly, I feel like I'm possessed. Not necessarily in a negative way, but it's an altered state.
I almost feel like I'm so in my own body and so out of it at the same time. You know, it's hard to explain that if you've never experienced that, but it's really strange, because it's almost like you're not doing it, but you can feel that you are, and you feel very alive.
It's a sense of flow. You know, like when people are doing what they really love to do, they're in it, in that sense of flow. And they feel content, they feel at ease, they feel like they could do that forever. And when I'm really engaged in, when I'm dancing in flamenco or whatever, I feel that sense of flow.
When you're in that moment and you're on stage and you're with everybody and you're in the middle of a piece, it's a high getting off stage like I've never felt. Like you have this adrenaline, you have this feeling, you have this fulfillment of doing something expressive and being I've done this on stage, and people have watched me give a piece of my heart and leave it on the stage and be like, bam, that's it, that's me right there. Take it or leave it. And that's why I dance flamenco.
The experience of like a really good show is impossible to put into words, but you like transcend like space and time and all of that, and you're just like all together, and it's like electric. You can feel the energy in the air, and you can't recreate it without audiences and all of that. And every audience makes a different show, and every night of the show will be different.
I don't know, it's a really indescribable, feeling, for sure. I can't, even if I tried, I'd probably just go in circles and circles, because, I mean, it's a different type of adrenaline that, as a dancer performer, what we feel, once we're on stage, and once you're off the stage, you're definitely wanting more. You're like, okay, this passed by it could be a 20-minute piece or something, and if you're just feeling that adrenaline, you just step off stage, it feels like 2 minutes, and you just want to like jump back in there and do it again. Let's give me another shot. I want to do this again.
There's nuts energy that's created when we perform, and we feel responsible for everybody when we're on stage together. You know what I mean? We're this one group of people, and we're all responsible for each other, and we feel so proud and happy, and it's so important. That one moment on stage for us is so important to us.
I've finally gotten to a point, and I can say too in my dancing, where I like to dance, and I appreciate every time I get to perform, because it's such a blessing. It's not like you can just go and perform. I mean, for us, for Yjastros, every time we perform, it's like this major undertaking. We have to spend all this money and do all this stuff to be able to do it. So it's one of these things that you have to really be thankful for every opportunity like that.
Anda y que dile a tu gente anda y que dile a tu gente si te dicen que no cógete la ropita y vente. Si te dicen que no, cógete la ropita y vente. Hombre, Joaquín. Ole tú, vamos ahí, Joaquín. ya me habla la muerte.
I mean, I have really never seen anybody walk away saying, why did I pay for a ticket? Because they're automatically drawn in.
I guess the first kind of piece of advice that I would give a new flamenco goer, seer, is that I think that you can really easily be caught up in the dancing and the costumes and the pretty girls. But I think in order to reach a new level of appreciation, to start to pay attention to the music and to how what the dancers are doing relates to what the singer is doing, which relates to what the guitarist is doing. That's the heart of what flamenco is, and ultimately what the heart of Yjastros is that relationship that goes on between those three elements. So looking for that is really important.
The beauty of flamenco is that we are dancing to live music, and we are dancing to somebody that is singing to us. And so when you go to watch one of these shows, you can't just be awed by the beauty of the physicality of it.
And we're so lucky to be able to work with the people that we work with. I mean, it's a rarity in flamenco here in the United States. And Joaquin, because he is so good, he can bring those who are so good. Vicente, Hector, all the people that the music, when it comes together, it's just incredible. And that's something that I really look forward to. It just puts everything together and it makes it really come alive.
So there's a lot of people contributing to this. There's a lot of opportunity for variation from what we're expecting, I'll just say. I don't want to call it like mistakes, or but you know, things can be different. The singer could be in one mood one day, or the guitar, you know, even a dancer, like we could hit something really hard one day and not the next, and it might create a different show. So I think it's good to keep in mind that it's all live, and it's just, there's something very real about that.
So when people come to our shows to watch us, that's what they're getting, is they're getting emotions from 15 people on stage who are all trying to convey their own emotions and at the same time convey one idea. So you know, you sit in those seats and you just feel, you feel the 15 dancers, you feel the 6 musicians, or you know, whatever it might be. And you're getting all of that in your seat. So it's a really rich experience. And I think it's one that is why people are so enthralled by it.
Something is happening here that's different from anywhere else, because I mean, I've seen it. You know, you see people come up to you and are just like, they just can't thank you enough, and you don't even know them, and they're like hugging you and crying, and it's like, oh, you know, so it's a pretty amazing experience. But basically, I think the shows speak for themselves. There's so many places here in the United States that are you know, doing flamenco, or flamenco shows are happening, and unfortunately, you know, the public, they go and see some of these shows and they walk away thinking that's what it is, and a lot of the time, more often than not, it's not. And so as just it's almost like there's a lot of injustice happening towards the art form, and people are getting this skewed idea of what flamenco is.
The more people we can educate about what flamenco is, the better. The more of an educated audience we have for our shows or for every festival, you know, the more the performers sense that, and they tend to perform differently for an audience that they feel kind of gets it.
Joaquin said something interesting the other day in rehearsal that really stuck with me, is that dance and a lot of times art and dance, it's you're taking something emotionally, you're taking something to a level sort of beyond the norm, a level beyond what the observer is comfortable with, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So we're expressing something, I think, in a lot of ways that the observer feels completely uncomfortable doing. Not all of them, but a lot of people who come to like any sort of dance show, any sort of, especially a flamenco show, I mean, they see these emotions expressed and they see these things done on stage, and they would never dream of doing that. And I mean, that's okay, but then let us take you there.
You shouldn't have to know anything to feel something. And that what we want is, we want to transmit that feeling. however we can, and that there's an exchange of energy between myself or whoever is on stage as an artist and you or all the audience as audience members. It's not just me giving to you and you receiving. It's me giving to you, you receiving, and you giving back and me taking. You as an audience member have to make those choices. And as you come and you see more and more shows, maybe you become more and more inspired to really know more and more about the art form. And when you know more and more, then you see different things and you experience different things. But as an audience member who knows nothing, the point is to come and to feel something.
There are always good reactions, even the ones who didn't like it, because you're going to have people who don't like it. I'm not saying everybody's going to walk in and love us. Of course, I want them to, but you know, you're going to have people say, well, that's not what I saw in Spain. That's not what I saw with Maria Benitez. That's not what I saw, whoever they've seen. And it's like, well, probably not. That's okay. The thing that I guess is I just wanted to sit down and see a show of real people performing in front of them and know that it's not television, that it's real. They're real people who work, who you're going to see at the mall tomorrow or at Smith's or Trader Joe's. That's who you're going to see, and that's who we are. Come watch. Come to a concert and come look and come sit in the front row and tell me what you feel, because then you'll get it.
a mí me da la ilusión. Y a mí me da la ilusión. Luego de rabia me como los puños y el camisón. Y luego de rabia me como los puños y el camisón. A tu lado, en tu compañía, caricia y beso de noche y día, con mirarte me travesía, me divertía, contigo a tu lado, en tu compañía, caricia y beso de noche y día, con mirarte me travesía. Solo con mirarte me estremecía.
The Spanish Room was about a place to me that people would go and begin to see and feel images of what would happen in a Spanish room, either literally or in their mind. And so what I did was try to take repertory, again, from what we had, create some newer things, the beginning, the introduction, work on some music, but create a feeling of what this room would look like or feel like for people. That was the beginning of that journey for me for Spanish Room. What it ended up becoming eventually was, it became another look at this company through the Spanish Room. I got to see Yjastros again, and I got to see what is it that's next, or what is it that we need. So for me, it was also a reflection. You know, I was looking inside that room and looking at them saying, what do these dancers, so it was almost like an exposure to me of who are these people and what do they need in their lives. Every one of those people in that Spanish room, including the audience, needs to be, and hopefully through that show, was for a moment fulfilled on some level. We all need to be fulfilled on some level, romantically, passionately, intellectually, musically, for just that moment, if nothing else, through that production. I know every person that went into that room in the theater at one moment or another was stimulated or touched on one of those levels. And if we can keep doing that through productions like this one, we will keep serving one of the roles that we need to serve as a company in Albuquerque. And that's our job, that's our duty, that's what we need to do, is we take those people to those places. And the Spanish Room, I felt, does that in a way that we haven't done before.
I wish that more people had the opportunity to have firsthand experience with music and dance and the arts in general. I think that there's something on a molecular level that it changes in us, that if more people did that, our world would be in a different place right now. I really believe that. And it's because of that lack of access that inhumane decisions are made. And that's why I believe that it's important what we have to share. And I have to believe that if it can do that in our community, then it can do it in a greater community and in a greater community. And that's what we're trying to do, just pass it on one person at a time. I've had opportunity to share this art form, and every time I pass it on, a part of the seed that my mother left in me is being given to another person. And that's an important process. And I will continue to do it until I can't do it anymore. And I know my children will as well, because we don't have a choice. We have to share it.
Yeah, Yjastros is an incredible thing. Yjastros is an incredible project, and it's like I can see it because I know that I'm so blessed to be involved in a project that gives me an opportunity to be able to dance with people on a daily basis, dance with a company of people, and it's this, I called it earlier a pipe dream, but it's this incredible dream that I'm so blessed to be a part of and to have people to work with and to do this truly, and I'm truly aware of the blessing and the sacrifice that it takes to be able to keep something like that going.
This project is very important to me, not just because it's my family's project, but because it espouses a lot of the ideas that I would like to think that I'm going to really work towards as an adult, as I enter my adulthood. You know, it's doing a lot of great things in a community that I feel is really growing in a way that some places aren't, and so that's really great.
Dance is hard. Dancing is hard, and a lot of times all of us get fed up with it. We just get tired of it. We're just like, God, my life would be so much easier if I wasn't a dancer. My life would be so much easier. But it's something that I will never, ever, ever be able to escape from. Never. Never, ever, ever. I'm just that in love with it.
If I could never do flamenco for some weird reason, yeah, that would be really hard. Because, yeah, I couldn't imagine it at all. Never. It's all, even if I'm doing something else and I don't have time to dance as much as I'm dancing now, I'm dancing a lot now, then it'll still always be a part of my life no matter what. No matter what.
I don't know, as hard as it gets, at the end of the day, it's totally worth it. And, you know, it's definitely at the moment not something that you can make a living off of, but it's something that you can make a life out of. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but at the end of the day, we're all there for the same reason, and we love each other, and I mean, it's been great. It's cool.
I just have the utmost respect for everyone, and they've been, I'm so lucky to have them. I don't think of them just as people I work with, but people who are like family and that I care about. So yeah, that's it. I'm glad. I hope they get to see that and know that.
Flamenco has taught me that beauty is something that's surrounded or encompassed by a lot of things, including discipline, including knowledge, skill, all of these things. That beauty is something that, with all of those things, all those skills need to be nurtured, and as you nurture those, there's beauty was there, and we need to nurture those things, truthfully, if we want to find that as a community. And that's not going to happen through a performance, or doesn't happen through just a dance class or through training. Even it happens through a lot of energy and sacrifice and input from a lot of people that really are interested in uncovering what that beauty is, what beauty is. And that is what we're trying to do here.
Flamenco.